Good morning, guys. So today we are actually going to be talking about the last planet in our solar system. We worked our way back to the 8th planet in our solar system, which is the planet of Neptune. And Neptune is known because it's so far away from the sun, but also you can tell by its bright blue color. And so why Neptune looks that bright blue color is the gases that it has around it. Just like Uranus has that bluish green color, Neptune has a deep blue color because of the gases that it's made from. So we are going to read this book, and remember, this is a book that gives us facts. So what do we call a book that gives us facts? Nonfiction. That's right, because I always think it's not fake. It's going to give us true information. And so this nonfiction book is called Neptune Far, Far Away, and it's written by Joyce Markovitch. So as we read this book, remember, you're not only going to be thinking about facts that you learned about Neptune, but I also want you to be looking and seeing if you can identify some of those nonfiction text features. Now remember, a nonfiction text feature is something in the book that helps us learn. So for example, a picture would be a nonfiction text feature because a photograph is going to give you a way to where you can understand what something looks like. Or remember when we had the glossary in the back? The glossary is a nonfiction text feature because it helps you learn words if you don't know them. So for example, if it has that bolded text, we can find it in the glossary. So it might be a word that we need to go back and figure out what that word means. So let's see if we can identify some as we read. What planet is the farthest planet from Earth? Neptune. Neptune is part of Earth's solar system. So let's see if we can go through them real quick. Here's our sun, then Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. And remember, these four are a lot smaller, but they also have something special. They have a solid surface. They're called our rocky planets. And then we have Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, and they're called our gas giants because they're made out of gas and they're huge compared to the other planets. So Neptune, it's the 8th planet from the sun. And if you look really careful, you can see these little lines. And these lines are showing you the orbit. So that's the path that planet is going to take as it goes around the sun. Neptune is very cold, partly because it is so far away from the sun. So the sun's rays take a long time to get there and are not as strong by the time that they get there, so it can't warm Neptune. The temperature can dip below -361 degrees. Neptune is the windiest planet in the solar system. Winds whip around at more than 1,297 miles per hour. So it's got the fastest wind. And if you look, it says these spots are windstorms. So it has those spots on it, just like, remember, Jupiter has that big storm. And so on my model, you can actually see some of those windstorms too. 57 Earths could fit inside of Neptune. So that's one big planet. So it is much bigger than Earth. And so let's look at this page. One of the nonfiction text features that this has is it is showing you a picture of Earth and Neptune, and it wants you to see them compared because it wants you to see the difference in size. So these pictures really help us figure out what it looks like, but then also being able to compare them to one another. 6 rings circle Neptune. So this is an actual real life photograph. It says 2 of Neptune's rings. So let's think about this. Everybody looks at Saturn and thinks, remember, Saturn has these huge rings. And when we think about rings, we think about Saturn as the ringed planet. But yesterday we learned that Uranus had some rings that went around it, but it looked like it was going in a different direction. And then Neptune actually has some rings too. The rings are made out of ice, dust, and other little bits of matter. Neptune has many moons. Scientists have counted up to 14 so far. There may be even more. So remember, we've only gotten a couple really good shots of the planet, so there could be more moons that they could be discovering later on. These are actually 2 of Neptune's moons. People cannot live on Neptune. Why? Well, first of all, what would happen since it's so far away from the sun? That's right, you would freeze, but it's also covered with blue clouds made from poisonous gases. So you cannot breathe those in. So remember when we talked about Venus, way back, the 2nd planet, Venus has the poisonous clouds. Neptune does too, but it's different type of clouds. So there's many reasons why we could not live on Neptune. Only one spacecraft, Voyager 2, has visited Neptune. And this is a photo of Neptune taken by Voyager 2. So look at that bright, bright blue color. It took 12 years for it to reach the big blue planet. So it drifted out into space for 12 years just to get there. That's because Neptune is so far away. So think about that. If you were able to go, it would take you 12 years of your life to go all the way there. But remember, it's not safe for astronauts to travel that far in space yet. We haven't figured out a way. So let's compare Neptune versus Earth. And remember, this is one of our nonfiction text features. It's a chart or a graph. So you can call it either one. So in the chart and the graph helps us compare information. So right off the bat, it's showing you Neptune. Neptune is the 8th and farthest planet from the sun, and that's versus the Earth, which is the 3rd planet from the sun. Look at this. Neptune's size, 30,000 miles long. And remember that the Earth is just a little bit under 8,000 miles long, so it's much bigger than Earth. Its average temperature is negative 328 degrees. And remember, our average temperature is 59 degrees, so it is so much colder. And then number of moons, we know 14, but probably more. They've only been able to spot 14. And remember, we only have the one moon that circles the Earth. Okay, and then remember, this is another text feature, which is the glossary. So these are some words that if you didn't understand them, you could come back and find them in the glossary. So matter is anything that has a weight or takes up space. Poisonous means unable to kill or harm a living thing. Remember, we talked about those poisonous gases that you wouldn't be able to breathe in. And the solar system is the sun and everything that circles around it, including our 8 planets. And then a spacecraft is a vehicle that can travel in space. And then temperature says how hot or cold something is. And why that was important is because we talked about, what about Neptune? How cold it is. It is so extremely cold since it's so far away from the sun. All right, guys. Just like yesterday on our other planets, what you're going to do is you're going to connect to Seesaw, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to color in the picture of Neptune. Tell me what it looks like, because it's very distinctive. It looks different than all the other planets. So you're going to draw what it looks like in the circle, and then you can either use the mic or you can write down and tell me some facts about Neptune, something that you learned about the planet, okay? All right, you guys did an awesome job. I'll see you later.